The President of the United States, Donald Trump, publicly declared that after the attacks on Venezuela and Iran, Cuba will be next.
There is a message for the president of Cuba. Look, Cuba is not doing well right now. The system has not been very good for the Cuban people. They have been suffering for many years.
And still in this context of international conflicts, the president of Cuba, Miguel Díaz-Canel, said that the Caribbean island is preparing for a possible attack from the United States.
The statement immediately raised an alert in the region, since the Cuban president, Miguel Díaz-Canel, is facing strong internal and international opposition, increasing the tension over the political future of the island. The advance of the Southern Command in the Caribbean Sea and the recent arrival of a United States aircraft carrier in Ecuador reinforced the perception that the United States is preparing a major military operation. This scenario points to a possible escalation that could redefine the balance of power and security on the continent. But even with the United States embroiled in the war with Iran, would the Pentagon be able to carry out a military operation in Cuba while also fighting cartels? Welcome to life in the barracks. Nights in Cuba are getting darker and darker. Blackouts happen every day. You know when it starts, but not when it ends.
You know when it starts, but not when it ends. That's how it is. At night, in one of the most expensive neighborhoods in the city, complete darkness.
Complete darkness. By targeting Cuba as his next objective, Donald Trump reinforces a long history of American influence over the island, marked by economic embargoes and political pressures that have spanned decades. Trump's current motivation to remove Díaz-Canel from power is connected both to Cuba's strategic value in the Caribbean and to the internal fragility of the regime, which is suffering from economic crises and popular unrest. Even though the Cuban governments have resisted invasion and external interference, they also failed to modernize their politics and economy, maintaining rigid practices that have greatly harmed the Cuban people. In this scenario, the pressure from the White House is against it. It's fertile ground, exposing how the lack of modernization and openness from the Cuban leadership contributes to the island remaining vulnerable to geopolitical disputes. The current United States Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, is the son of Cuban immigrants who left the island before Fidel Castro's rise to power, which gives him a direct connection to the reality experienced by the Cuban people. This family background gives him a closer understanding of the difficulties faced by the population, such as political repression and the economic crises that have dragged on for decades, strengthening his position as an influential voice within the United States government. For this reason, Rubio has served as an important advisor to Donald Trump on regional issues, helping to formulate strategies aimed at weakening Miguel Díaz-Canel's regime and bringing progress back to the Cuban people. Rubio's actions combine the geopolitical interests of the United States with a personal narrative of Cuba's liberation, but it also exposes how the governments that have ruled the island have failed, keeping the country in misery and without prospects for improvement. The advance of the Southern Command in the region in recent weeks is directly connected to Donald Trump's statement that Cuba would be the next target of military incursions. The Southern Command is one of the strategic arms of the United States, and it has already demonstrated its capability by invading Venezuela and capturing Nicolas Maduro, with the support of special forces such as Delta Force demonstrating their skill in infiltration, rescue, and capture missions. Responsible for coordinating United States military operations in Latin America and the Caribbean. Southern Command has a broad area of responsibility, which includes maritime security, counter-narcotics operations, and support for stabilization missions. Its structure is designed for power projection and rapid execution of operations, which makes it a central tool for the interests of the United States in the region. Even with the war in Iran in full swing, Southern Command maintains a permanent force, which does not compromise its actions in the region. Given this history, an incursion into Cuba could follow a similar pattern, with the direct objective of overthrowing President Miguel Díaz-Canel, who has already been sanctioned by the United States State Department. The combination of political pressure and military capability reinforces the possibility of a coordinated action that would profoundly alter the geopolitical balance in the Caribbean. Believing that Donald Trump will stick only to rhetoric and not take action is a strategic mistake that could prove costly, as already happened with Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela. Even when faced with alternatives to surrender, flee, or negotiate, the Chavista dictator chose to challenge the United States, and he ended up captured, now running the risk of facing even a life sentence. This precedent shows that underestimating American statements can be fatal for leaders who insist on resisting. With the Cuban roots of Secretary of State Marco Rubio, the pressure on Havana becomes even stronger, since he knows the island's problems up close and acts as a vector of influence within the American government. Added to the advance of the America's shield against cartels in the region, the United States has the means to carry out a large-scale operation in Cuba. With just one well-planned action against the cartels in the region, the United States can also overthrow the Cuban president using the same structure of the America's shield, eliminating two problems with just one move. Leave in the comments what you think about this United States offensive in Cuba and whether you agree with these actions by Trump in some countries in the region. Son of Guantel. At Life in the Barracks, you stay updated on everything in the military world. Leave your like, subscribe, and watch one of the videos appearing on your screen. Forward fighters, see you next time.